a lot of people will just go all in for something that they're not truly passionate about, and then if it fails, then it's even more devastating. Whereas for me, like, say my YouTube channel shuts down and I don't make any more money doing this anymore, I'm still going to make videos. I'll be doing this the rest of my life. That's something I do anyway.
Welcome to Becoming Radical, the podcast for creators, builders, and dreamers just like you. What does it mean to become radical in a world of constant change? Hosted by Michael Gaizutis, each week we'll explore the real-time journeys of those rewriting the rules. From untold failures to groundbreaking success. If you're ready to break the boundaries of limited thinking, this is your guide to unlimited growth.
Welcome to Becoming Radical. Excited to have everybody here today. We are joined by the one, the only Matt Beat, otherwise known as Mr. Beat. Matt, Mr. Beat, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Michael. Great to talk to you again after 20 years.
20 years. You know, for everybody tuning in today, I have known Matt Beat, Mr. Beat, for about 22 years or so. It's crazy. Back in the day at KU, otherwise known as University of Kansas, in Lawrence, Kansas. Some cool, great days, you know, where I knew you and your wife, Shannon, and man, you know, time has passed, but along this journey, wow, have you been successful. Looking at what you've done in market is super cool, right? So I don't want to steal the show from you, but just a quick overview. You know, you've been a history teacher. You know, prior to that, you were in radio. You created this YouTube channel and great content around that has really been thought-provoking, centered around American history, geography, political science, and with well over 1 million plus subscribers on YouTube. You've not only built a loyal base, but you've broke down complex topics like we were just talking about. I'd love to hear more about that, right? And to talk to our listeners about, you know, when you started your career as a high school teacher, you know, what really inspired you to make this jump to being a full-time YouTube creator? What was that inspiration point for you?
Yeah, I always was making videos pretty much since college. Like my degree, actually both of us, we crossed paths not only at the apartment complex we lived at, but also at journalism school. Yeah, so my first degree was in broadcast journalism. I loved being in radio, and I worked in television for a little while, made a documentary, and I just always loved that. Later, I went back to school to become a teacher, a social studies teacher. So I taught everything from economics to American history to world history to geography, you name it. And I just took those skills that I had acquired and also the passion for the format, making videos. And I decided to do that for my students and, as I call them now, my students in real life, because my students on the internet now are still there. But yeah, for 12 years, I taught everything from 7th grade to 12th grade, and I would force them to watch the videos I created for them. And the earliest videos I made were, you know, the only ones who saw them were my actual students in real life. They were pretty cringy. They were not the best produced, filled with audio issues. I don't know, but the kids got a kick out of it. Generally, they thought it was cool. I was doing something different. I also love music, so I made songs. Like I did social studies parody songs, and I made my own original music. And today I'm kind of most known for my president songs. I have a song about every single president of the United States because I was most passionate about presidential history. That's what I've been passionate about since I was a kid, you know, American political history, but specifically American presidential history. And so as far as like, okay, jump ahead to 2016, 2017, by that time, I had actually started to have success with an audience for the first time that was not forced to watch my stuff. A teacher. Yeah, because like before 2017, if you saw a video by me, it was probably another history teacher that was just like, "Oh, this matches the curriculum, and so I'm going to have my students in class watch it." Whereas,
Exactly.
yeah, so I had a series that that covered every single presidential election in American history, and that actually was popular with an audience that was just people that were watching for fun, like, they were just curious about this
Yeah.
stuff, and so that was when I was like, "Oh, maybe I should take YouTube a little bit more
Yeah.
seriously," especially since they were paying me a little bit. I mean, it wasn't much,
Yeah.
but, the way that you earn a lot of your revenue on YouTube is just,
Yep.
anytime an ad runs in front of the video or, during a mid-roll, you get a 45% of that, whatever YouTube makes from that,
Yep.
and so, yeah, I did that like, I was coaching tennis and basketball on the side. By 2019, I was, like, no longer having to coach because now my side hustle
Wow.
was YouTube. Yeah, so
It's
and that's
amazing.
also by 2019 also, I was, like, going to conferences and I was meeting other we
Mm.
call ourselves EduTubers, so
YouTubers, yeah.
YouTubers who, primarily create educational content, so not just
Yep.
social studies, but science,
Yeah.
mathematics, language arts, you name it, and so we all, stayed in touch and,
Yeah.
it's a great community, and, um, also, I was inspired by the great edutubers. I always wanna give a shout out to, like, those who inspired me. So,
Yeah.
Crash Course was a channel that was very influential. The Green Brothers, who I got to meet multiple times, and they gave me a small grant to purchase new
Ah,
equipment to film and to edit.
that's cool.
Yeah, that was actually all the way back in 2018.
Wow.
And so yeah, I got a new camera. I started taking it more seriously. Jump ahead to the
Nice.
pandemic. Pandemic is when things really got real because
Mm.
everybody went online for school.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like, my videos are doing even better. And by the end of 2020, I like just did the math and uh, talked to Shannon, Mrs. Beat, and was like, "Hey, I'm making more money doing this now, making the YouTube videos than I do teaching in the
Yeah.
classroom." And so I made
Yeah.
the decision to leave in 2021, and I've been doing YouTube full time ever since.
It's amazing, man. That's congrats. That's exciting beyond belief. And it sounds to me like it's been a journey, it's the 10 to 15 to 20-year success story, right? It's not the overnight success story that everybody talks about, right? It takes time, right? And
Yeah.
it usually starts with something just like you said, like, you get better equipment, you get a grant for better equipment, you get to meet more edutubers, as you said, where you're getting to network, and your network is everything. It's your net worth. It's who you know, and who you are with who you know. And how do you typically choose, which topics you cover? This it's a polarizing political climate, as we know. How do you choose those topics typically?
Well, in the early days, it was obviously more curriculum based. And so if I knew that there was actually the very first video I ever made back in 2009, believe it or not, I didn't even make it public to anyone other than my students in the classroom. It was about the Compromise of 1850. And the reason why I
Mm.
made it was because at that time in 2009, when you searched Compromise of 1850 on
Yeah.
YouTube, the only thing that came up in search results was student projects, like students
Mm.
in high school that had filmed
Wow.
themselves talking about Compromise of 1850 from a textbook, and they were really bad
Wow.
videos. And so it's like
Yeah, I
I
bet.
can do this better. I mean, even though my videos sucked as well. But yeah, so like that was
Yeah.
the way I did it for many, many years. Like,
Mm.
let's make a
Smart.
video about the Texas Revolution because no one's really made a good one about that. Or,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. Like, basically going through American history textbook is primarily what I would do. Is like if I noticed there wasn't a good video about it, or like once
Yeah.
Crash Course was around, like they'd cover a bunch of stuff, but they'd leave out certain details, and like, oh, I'll fill in the gaps. Now it's actually
Interesting.
more curiosity based. I would say I'm letting my own curiosity guide how I pick videos, mostly. However, there's also like if I find that there's a need for a lot of people to know something they should have been taught in a
Yeah.
high school social studies class, but they never were taught it. Like for example,
Yeah.
I was very inspired to make a video about tariffs, recently. 'Cause
Mm.
I was like, "Oh,
Tariffs, that's an interesting topic. I wonder why.
yeah." Yeah, the day after the 2024 presidential election, a lot of people were
Yeah.
searching, "What is a tariff?" And I was like, "Well, holy crap, I guess I need to
Mm.
make a video about this."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Makes sense. Keep it relevant, keep it, current and provide some info, some value that actually can help people understand what's going on and why. I think it's huge. You had a series from what I understand called the Compared series, which
Mhm.
was wildly popular. Why do you think so many people are drawn to comparisons between states or countries? What do you think is that gravitational pull?
Yeah, I think, just because of rivalries is a big reason why. One of the
Yep.
first comparisons I did was comparing Kansas and Missouri. It's a big state rivalry,
Mm.
and so I,
Yep.
just kind of expanded it from there. A lot of times,
Mhm.
or like, why are there 2 Dakotas? Why are there 2 Carolinas?
Mm.
Stuff like that. And then, I just because of my own interests, I just expanded it to the globe. However, that was always beyond my comfort zone, like I'm comparing countries in Africa or,
Yeah.
comparing cities in India, like so part of it was, part of the reason why I don't do this series as much anymore is because I felt like I was, like, getting too much wrong, like,
Ah.
if I'm pronouncing something wrong or
Yep.
if I'm misunderstanding the history of, this African country, I feel, like, embarrassed to so, like, I haven't really
Yeah.
made that series as much lately, for that reason. However, yeah, like, it's a good way to trick people into learning geography and history and really everything, all
Yeah.
sciences, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes total sense. And I think it comes down to the presentation, right? So like the way you create these videos, you share them, you talk about different subjects, right? You're engaging without being overly sensational, right? And how do you balance that? I mean, I think it's just true to who you are, right? But is there something else that allows you to strike that balance where you're engaging, you're connecting, but you're not over the top, right? You're not like at a whole nother level of uh a Hollywood TV, so to speak.
It's tricky because you don't
Yeah.
wanna have clickbait and stuff like that
Mm.
where you're just I mean, at the same time, though, you wanna get people to click on the video, and we do
Yeah.
live in an attention-based economy these days. There's so
Yes,
many
we do.
different people competing for your attention, like this
Mhm.
podcast, like what are you gonna call it, to get people to click on it or to listen to it?
Yep, yep.
I struggle with this because part of it is you wanna get people to click, and so, yeah, like, the first huge video I ever did was actually, "Why do people
Yeah.
hate Jews?" That's the name of the video. It's a
Yeah.
video going through the history of anti-Semitism, so it wasn't really
Right?
clickbait, that's what I but, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
question that, like, "Okay, I'm gonna click on that," and sure enough, it worked. Also, anytime you cover anything that's in the news or a controversial
Yeah.
topic, like abortion, for example, if I
Mm.
can make a video about abortion and I know that it's going to do well.
Yep.
So part of it is, yeah, just getting them to click on it, looking at the thumbnail. But once they're there, then it comes down to the storytelling, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And I try to, like, based on all my years teaching middle schoolers and high schoolers, I've learned a few tricks that keep how to keep someone's attention. Usually, most
Mm.
even as adults, like if it's longer than a minute, we start to zone out. So you have to like at least
Absolutely.
every minute do something where you're changing it up somehow. Um, like if I was in the classroom, what that meant was,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not just lecturing for 45 minutes straight. Um,
Yeah.
where it's variety, you're chunking up activities, and so if I'm on camera for more than a minute at a time, I think that's not usually a good thing, or at least you're doing different things within the shot. Um,
Yeah.
I still incorporate a lot of music, bad
Cool.
jokes, just any kind of or like a meme, yeah, just throwing a meme in there or a movie clip,
Yeah.
I think helps. Even
I
then,
like that.
though, you don't wanna get too out of control with it because, yeah, it's supposed to be an educational
Yeah.
video, and then they could forget what they're supposed to be learning.
Exactly. That's true. Yeah. No, then they're zoned out so much where they're like, "Oh, what's that meme? That's cool.
Well,
I like that." And that's interesting. You talked about teaching. What do you think traditional education is getting wrong about teaching history or civics? Like, where is the gap? Like, where today we're in the class, be it public, private sector, school system. Where do you think that gap exists, and what do you think could improve?
I think just getting to know the students a little bit better, it will go really far. I invested a lot of time into learning more about my students every time, like especially those first 2 or 3 weeks of the school year. I think it's really important because you need to know where they're coming from. You need to know what
Yeah.
kind of media they're consuming and what their interests are, what their knowledge is, most importantly, of course. I sometimes can get out of touch. I didn't realize that so many people didn't know what terrorists were, didn't know what they were. And I was like, holy crap. And so that was, and I'm actually, honestly, it's been this way this whole year. I'm just like kind of adjusting
Yeah.
things. Um, there's a colleague of mine who he's a history tuber. He'll do a yearly survey to his audience.
Mm,
I have a Discord server that really helps me kind of stay
sweet.
tuned with what their mind is on. Like,
Yep.
kind of keeps me up to date with the Gen Z, Gen Alpha
That's right.
lingo as well. Skibbity, yeah. So you just got to know your audience. And when I was in the classroom, it was know the students. Now my students, like I said earlier, my students are all around the world. So
Absolutely.
it,
It's
they
really
like
cool.
and reading the comments. You have to read the comments.
Yeah.
I know sometimes the comments are terrifying, especially in that
Yeah.
anti-Semitism video. They're whew, FBI is keeping a
I can
close eye
imagine. Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I can imagine. That's not a good one. Yeah. Reading through 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Yikes. Read the comments except for that video. Maybe skip that video and those comments. So you have a strong focus on nonpartisanship, right? How do you stay neutral when you're covering some of these hot button topics? What does that look like for you? I mean, obviously, you have certain feelings, perceptions. How do you stay neutral, like Switzerland, as you're covering these things?
I It's really difficult to stay completely neutral. Everybody's
Yeah.
biased, but I would say that as long as my audience knows where I'm coming from, and so being completely transparent about my own biases,
Yep.
and as far as like the information itself, always making sure that my viewers know where to research more on their own and to fact check my own video. So listing the sources, and then I always have a document in the description that's annotated, so you can click on the
Cool.
Google Doc, you can see footnotes and all that, like where I'm getting, like especially if it's a contentious piece of information. But yeah, like I mean, mostly though, they start to trust me when I get things right. 99% of the time, I'm right. I've been right, and so that doesn't mean like yeah, no one is fallible. So or infallible, I should say. All of us are fallible. So just saying or framing it as like I'm along for the ride too. Like we're all learning together versus like I'm the
Yeah.
only one who has all the information and this should be like no, like we're all along for the ride. And so just and then also leaning heavily on experts, which for my videos typically that means historians, but sometimes economists or demographers or you name it, like, depending on, the subject matter.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And I totally feel you. I think sometimes it's hard to stay neutral. So it's like, you want to not bring all of you to the table sometimes because you want to allow for your audience to get their own opinions and feelings and perspectives about what it is you're covering. So it makes total sense. And I guess that brings me to another question. How do you think educators can better prepare students to navigate media? In today's information landscape, there's so much media out there. As you said, attention economy, right? Everybody's trying to suck you into the vortex of Meta and Instagram and TikTok and XYZ, right? So how do you better prepare students to navigate that, you think?
Well, there's a lot of emphasis these days on media literacy. A lot of teachers talk about it all the time, but what does that actually mean? Because media literacy
Yeah.
means different things to different people. So I just think it means, first and foremost, suspending judgment on whatever content that you're consuming. You're not just automatically believing everything you're coming across.
Yeah.
After that, knowing that critical thinking is a process that's
Yep.
just, for lack of a better way of putting it, critical thinking just means somebody makes a claim or an argument,
Yep.
and you're just trying to figure out if that claim is true, mostly true, partially true, or false. Those are usually your 4 options. I would say the vast majority of claims that are made are either mostly true or partially true. And so knowing that knowledge is usually on a spectrum, when we talk about absolutes like binary, it's either this or that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then after that, I think it like you'd be surprised how a lot of people can navigate pretty well because a lot of times it just requires pause and it requires reflection, and you're not just impulsively spreading information if you are
Yeah.
doing these things as you consume information. So
Yeah.
just slowing down.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely. And, I guess when it comes to your videos, right, you probably feel some level of, like you said, responsibility, knowing your videos might be used in classrooms. So you have your global audience, right, with all these people around the world that are tuning in. And then you have the specific classroom settings where people are learning and engaging and trying to absorb new information that has a lot of value and merit. Do you feel like when you're crafting some of these videos, you're also paying attention to that fact too, that some of these audiences will be in classroom, or they might be in and out of classroom, but you want to make sure that there's a lot of value for them and they're learning as much as they can about things from the past and also that are really relevant to the present.
Yeah, I do realize that a lot of times my videos are being shown to captive audiences, meaning they cannot leave. And to
Yep.
me, it's like this makes me a little bit more anxious because, like, I know, oh,
Yeah.
crap, I really got to make sure I get it right. But at the same time, like, I think what really helps me too is that, you know, if I am leaning heavily on an expert, that means I'm just always like referring to something else. And that just means like that sends a signal to whoever's watching, oh, maybe I should be looking at this myself. Like at this point, I
Right.
source myself. And um, as far as really, I'm mostly just trying to get people interested. Like a lot of my
Yeah.
videos are just the first step. They are the beginning of hopefully a long journey to learn more about a topic. And so I feel like I'm just a cheerleader in some ways to get people interested in this stuff because a lot of, I mean, that's why sometimes I'll go to the street too. I'll just interview the
Yeah.
street and because they're not thinking about these things otherwise.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. No, and that's the best way, to figure out how to go to the street, talk to the people, figure out, what they want, what they're interested in. I remember doing that years ago when I ran another business. You go out there and you listen to the people, you listen to what they want, you figure out could they see value in that, right? Like, does it make sense? So, yeah, it's really cool. Like when it comes to research and scripting, how long does it typically take you to come up with a typical episode from idea to upload? What is that process usually like for you?
I really should write this down more, but it does vary.
Yeah.
I would say the average 20-minute video is anywhere from we're talking from research, starting with research and writing,
Yeah. Yep.
going to editing, audio and video editing, also filming in there, some obviously, putting all the images together. And so,
Yep.
like, a 20-minute video is probably usually like at least twice, like 40 hours of work, I would say.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah. But then I could just do something where I'm just interviewing someone, kind of like this is.
Yeah.
But there's minimal editing required, so it would go a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Or like my Supreme Court brief series, I don't appear on camera for that series. It's all, and then I have a lot of animations, and so that does take longer. So
Right.
it depends on the
Yeah.
type of video. Yeah,
And are you doing those animations yourself? Are you doing all that?
I am, but it's.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get fooled. They're pretty rudimentary. I mean, they're basically most of the time I'm just screen screen recording
Yep.
stuff that I'm making on PowerPoint or I get like
Yep.
I use Canva a lot. Oh, Canva.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because like you can really clean up old images and make things look pretty slick, and then
That's cool.
you just animate it a little bit. People all of a sudden are more likely to watch. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they wanna see movement.
Yeah.
As long as it moves, it's in color, it's interactive, it's animated. They love it. Yeah. Exactly. So thinking of tools, you've got Canva. What about like gear? We talked about gear earlier. What kind of gear do you typically use for these videos for production? What does that look like?
Let's see here. I got my camera that I have. I always forget the name of it, but as far as when I'm
Yeah,
recording, always audio is the most important thing. So having some kind
absolutely.
of like handy recorder. But
Yep.
I'm a big Canon guy. This is my camera. This is a
Sweet.
R6 Mark II, and a few $100s. I don't remember how much it
Yep.
cost exactly, but that's my primary camera. But honestly, you can get some pretty good picture, like just from an iPhone or iPad. We use that some
Yeah.
as long as you're outdoors. Because the
Yeah.
biggest trick is the lighting when you're indoors. But yeah, like
Exactly.
I mean, that's no longer an obstacle. If you want to, for those folks that are saying, "Oh, this is too expensive," to bull crap.
Yeah.
No, it's all cheap
Yeah.
now.
It's cheap. You can get stuff now on the cheap. You can leverage tech stacks that can help you to, with production, with post-production. There's so many vehicles now that make it more accessible. You're absolutely right. And, as you're growing, as you're building, you have less to work with. And then as time goes by, you scale it out, just like we talked about earlier. So that's really cool. I'm glad you shared that. Thank you for doing that. What's next for the Mr. Beat brand? We talked a little bit about this, but books, courses, TV, platforms, who knows? We're not talking about Mr. Beast here. We're talking about Mr. Beat, even though I know you did a video on that. Uh, but what's next for you, Mr. Beat? What does that look like?
It's weird because the brand is myself. Like it's just
Yeah.
literally the reason why the channel is called Mr. Beat is because that's what the students call me in the classroom. It's not like
Yeah, that's you.
By the way,
Yeah.
I should say I started my channel before Mr. Beast. Okay, I
Yeah.
started in 2011. He
Ah,
started in 2012. Yeah, but
that's
anyway,
good. You have some leverage there.
yeah,
From a copyright register mark perspective, if they start to infringe, you have some leverage. So that's good.
yeah. But yeah, so like because the brand is me, it's like
Yeah.
really weird because if somebody
Yeah.
comes across me on the street, they just assume I'm going to act exactly like I am in the videos, which
Yep.
thankfully, yeah, I probably will act the same.
Yeah.
But what if like I decide to go through like another emo phase, like I did when I
Mm.
knew me in college, like where like I grow my hair out longer and I just wear all black and I start wearing eyeliner, get rid of the
There you
glass.
go.
Like that's that I don't know. And then there's some people like I've been sharing my opinion more and more online on social media in particular. And so
Yeah.
people are like, "We should run for office." I'm like, "Well, here's the bottom line. Whatever I end up doing in the future is I
Yep.
do want to have more influence and impact for positive social change. I want
Yeah.
reforms. There's a lot of things like I've made videos where at the beginning of the video I say this is not an educational video. This is an opinion video. This is propaganda.
Ah.
So there are distinctions. I sometimes you just share my opinion because
Yeah.
there's a certain point where you learn enough about a topic you're comfortable sharing to a large audience. Like this is my opinion, and so one of those
Yeah.
things is the
Absolutely.
electoral college. I've made multiple videos about
Mm.
the electoral college. I've given speeches and done public debates about it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, there's certain issues that I'm more passionate about,
Of
particularly
course.
voting reforms that I would like to see passed. And so that's why I'm actually doing a program at the Dole Institute next week, where this is at the University of Kansas.
Yeah.
Where I'm bringing in a couple activists, and we're going to discuss different
Cool.
voting reforms. So doing more stuff like
That's
that, I think.
interesting. It's very cool. Yeah, the electoral college, interesting thing that can very much so help those trying to run for office. Very interesting thing. That's for sure.
That's the
Uh,
only adjective you want to use. Interesting. Okay.
yeah, that's interesting is a neutral way of presenting it. To go back to neutral. But yeah, fascinating stuff, man. You talked about collaborating with people. You mentioned with voting reform. If you could collaborate with anybody, alive or no longer living, who would it be? Who would be your like dream collaborator? And it could be in different capacities. It could be, doing videos. It could be just an interview, just an ideation session, just somebody to chat with. Like, who would that be for you?
I think it'd be more actual members of government, members of
Mm,
Congress, the president, members of the Supreme Court. Yeah, because,
yep.
like, I feel a lot of them, are they just don't take, what I do seriously. There are
Interesting.
exceptions, like Cory Booker is an exception. He actually is one of the
Yeah.
he was the only senator to send me a video response, and I
Very
just
cool.
covered his filibuster. He comment or somebody from his staff, either he or someone from his staff commented underneath it. But yeah, like you would think that we live in an age of authenticity where authenticity rules. And so you would think
Yeah.
that, like, I have a direct connection with my audience. And so you'd think they would want to, like, hop on that ride because
Yeah.
I get insights they do not get. Their staffers may think they're getting this information. They're not. I know stuff
Exactly.
their staff doesn't know. And so I feel like that's a huge advantage I have. So it
Yeah.
wouldn't just be like, oh, I just want access to, like, insider. No, like, I think they need we have a Congress that's pretty out of touch right now, and I think that
Yeah.
reaching out to YouTubers and, just I know, lack of a better word, but influencers
Mm.
or would be really beneficial to them.
Absolutely. Well, they're out of touch and you're in touch. And at the end of the day, you're connected to the community, right? That's what matters, right? Like the community is what drives the collective, is what drives everything, right? If we think about, you know, one of the leading advertising experts back in the day, David Ogilvy, said, we're not advertising towards a standing army, we're advertising towards a moving parade. Everything is always changing, right? And the same holds true now. It's just rapidity of technology that has moved so much faster. So you've got this acceleration, this hyper acceleration now with technology, as we both know, and that's making it interesting and powerful, but dangerously difficult too. Because if we don't balance it the right way, and if we don't transfer that information the right way, it can be, there can be a lot of misinformation, a lot of, disadvantageous scenarios, as we both know. So I think that's really cool. You're so in touch with that. You have that community and they can lean into that. It's really awesome. I guess if I were to ask you one last thing for today, and I'm sure we'll have you back, but if I were to ask one last thing for today, if you could give one piece of advice, let's say rule of becoming radical, like you did, like you got into this space, you were a history teacher, you had all this other experience. What would be the one thing that you think would really help somebody to build something new, something different? And what advice would you give them?
Well, I always made videos and I always made stuff about social studies or presidential history, especially because I was interested in it. And this is
Yeah.
something I would do it anyway. Like I was making videos for free. Um, and so if you're not going to do something anyway, like for
Yep.
free, then you're truly not passionate about it. So
Yeah,
there's
totally.
a lot of people will just go all in for something that they're not truly passionate about, and then if it fails, then it's even more
Yeah,
devastating. Whereas for me,
absolutely.
like, say my YouTube channel shuts down and I don't make any more money doing this anymore, I'm still gonna make videos. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be
Yeah.
doing this the rest of my life. It's something I do anyway, and
Amazing.
so that's the way I think that's usually the advice. Like, that's the advice I would give my own daughters as far as what
Yep.
they want to do for the rest of their lives.
It's smart. It's the best advice I think you could give. When you think about doing what you love, doing what you're good at, the intersection of your talents, do it because of those things, right? And the rest will make sense. It'll come to life, It's just be you, be authentic like you talked about, be real, enjoy it, have fun with it, like and just detach from the rest because the rest is just a store of value from what you're bringing, right? Like, and then you can use it to make positive change, like you talked about, like, then what can you do if you are really successful, even monetarily? If you make a lot of money from it, great. What can you do to then do something really beneficial and impactful to people? And how can you put that back into your content, your business, or whatever you're working on? So, stellar advice, Mr. Beat. Love it. Where can people find you? If they don't know you yet on Becoming Radical, where can they tune into Mr. Beat? Where are all the channels, the places, the platforms? What does that look like for you?
I am MrBeat.com. That's the main website. But yeah, you just search up Mr. Beat on pretty much any social media platform, and I should pop up. But you might get Mr. Beast, but just
Ooh,
drop the S because I never miss a beat. And YouTube is my main platform, though. That's where I post the most, and that's where I spend a lot of my time. Although I'm on Twitch more and more these days too. That's another thing. You just got to keep like you were saying earlier, just keep changing with whatever platforms pop up.
Exactly. Platforms and places, they're going to keep changing. And, that's the coolest part with technology. The best part of technology is that it will keep advancing in ways that can allow us to reach other people and connect. And that's a really big advantage of technology, right? So that's awesome, man. Well, I'm so glad you were here today. I really do believe you've changed the game. You are becoming more and more radical every day. The future is unknown. We don't know what's going to happen, but you're on the right path. You're on. Maybe somebody would say, you're following the right beat. No pun intended. But you're moving in the right direction, and I'm so excited that you were here today. You talked to our audience. We're gonna stay tuned to get their comments. Would love to have you back on the show. We'll be cheering you on every step of the way as you continue on your journey. So thanks for being here, Matt, Mr. Beat. Appreciate your time, and we'll keep it going.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, man.
Thank you for listening to Becoming Radical. If today's episode sparked something in you, follow wherever you listen, join the conversation, and share it with someone ready to think beyond limits. Be unlimited, be bold, and become radical. See you next time.